Welcome to Refugee 101 with Colorado Refugee Connect. Our website fosters a flourishing Colorado by connecting refugee and local communities through opportunities to learn, engage, and celebrate. These introductory videos explain who refugees are and give a basic overview of the resettlement process. The Learn page contains other books, websites, and resources where viewers can learn more. In this session, we'll explore refugee resettlement and gain a better understanding of the resettlement and integration journey. Who is a refugee? To answer this, we'll first need to define refugee status and distinguish those with refugee status from other types of immigrants. Humans have a long history of moving from place to place. There are many motivating factors. Let's look at different categories of individuals who make their way to America. We'll start with immigrants and migrants. An immigrant, by definition, moves to another country by choice, usually in search of better life opportunities. Immigrants are often reasonably prepared for their moves, and in most cases, choose their destination. A migrant is one who willingly travels from one place to another, or one country to another, usually for work or economic gain. Others are forced to relocate from their homes as a means of survival. In the process, they may be required to leave behind homes, possessions, loved ones, businesses, and personal histories. These categories of individuals include internally displaced persons, or IDPs, asylum seekers and asylees, special immigrant visa holders, or SIVs, and refugees. Internally displaced persons, or IDPs, make up the largest category. These individuals are forced to flee their homes, but remain within the boundaries of the home country. IDPs may relocate due to natural disasters or man-made causes such as war. Almost all refugees begin as IDPs. Refugees are also displaced from their homes, but are set apart from other displaced persons in that their flight must be related to war or violence, and they must experience an earnest fear for their life as a result of ongoing persecution. International law, as laid out in the 1951 Geneva Convention, requires that in order to qualify for refugee status, an individual must be someone who fled his or her own country because of persecution, or a well-founded fear of persecution based on race, religion, nationality, membership in a particular social group, or political opinion. Ultimately, it is the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, or UNHCR, which is responsible for determining eligibility for refugee status. First, a person must experience a well-founded fear of persecution. Next, he or she must be outside of the country of nationality. He or she must be unable to access protection from the home country and cannot be a national of another country. Only then can he or she receive refugee status from the UNHCR. There are a few other groups of people who qualify for protected humanitarian status according to United States immigration law, but are considered separate from refugees. These people meet the same definition of fear for their lives based on persecution, but they enter the United States without going through the UNHCR, and they must prove their status to the US government directly. These include asylees and SIVs. Asylees start as asylum seekers. Asylum seekers may have a claim to protected humanitarian status, but must go through a US immigration court process to obtain this designation, which is called final asylum. Typically, asylum seekers come to a port of entry, or are already living in the host country when they apply for this form of humanitarian status. Once asylum seekers obtain their status as asylees, they qualify for the same kinds of services as other refugee populations who've entered the United States via the UNHCR. Another group of people who qualify for protected humanitarian status in US immigration law are called SIVs. Special immigrant visa holders, or SIVs, have a special status granted to certain Afghan and Iraqi nationals who have provided faithful and valuable service to the US government. Some of these individuals and their immediate families are resettled because their lives are in grave danger in their home countries as a result of their loyal service to the United States. As a reminder, Displaced persons leave their homes for a variety of reasons, including war, famine, natural disaster, or economic instability. Only those who flee for fear of life or persecution are eligible for refugee status. Refugees' journeys vary tremendously. Some travel through multiple countries in search of safety. In the process of escape, many must place themselves in uncertain circumstances or entrust their lives to smugglers. Some endure periods without basic necessities like food, water, shelter, or medical care. Many flee without important documentation. Some are forced to leave family members behind. The majority of refugees relocate to urban camps, where they band together within established cities. Urban camps are often makeshift and may evolve to have their own economies. Some resettle in formal refugee camps, usually organized by the UNHCR. These are the images of refugee camps that most Westerners are familiar with, usually having standardized tent structures and organizational staff. On average, a refugee lives in a camp setting for 17 years. The average duration a refugee spends away from his or her country before he or she is able to return is 20 years. Prior to upheaval, most refugees had no desire to leave their home countries. In fact, this process can be very traumatic. Poet Warsan Shire explains that no one leaves home unless home is the mouth of a shark. Once refugee status eligibility has been determined, the UNHCR considers three durable solutions. The first is a repatriation back into the country of origination. The second is integration, or a legal permanent residence in a neighboring host country. And the third option is resettlement to an agreeing third-party country. However, less than half of 1% of the world's refugees will ever be resettled to a third-party country. Those who do make it all the way to the United States are truly 1 in a million. Here, in places like Colorado, individuals with refugee paths will rebuild their lives. A startling truth. According to the UNHCR, as of 2019, there were more than 70 million displaced persons in the world. Of those, more than 25 million can be categorized as refugees. The vast majority of the world's refugees are hosted by developing countries. In fact, these 10 countries host more refugees than the rest of the globe combined. Sadly, more than half of the world's refugees are children. Children, especially unaccompanied minors, are a particularly vulnerable population. Unaccompanied minors are at an increased risk for abuse, exploitation, trafficking, child labor, and physical or psychological harm. Let's explore some factual data about refugee resettlement to America. Historically, the U.S. has been a world leader in refugee resettlement, accepting 3 million of the more than 4 million refugees resettled worldwide since 1980. Refugee resettlement to America is based upon presidential determination, which is declared ahead of each fiscal year. In the nearly 40-year span from 1980 to 2020, the United States welcomed refugees each year, offering them permanent residency and eventually the opportunity to become naturalized citizens. Traditionally, about 2% of the refugees who arrive in America are resettled to Colorado. Since 1980, the Centennial State has served more than 60,000 refugees from 115 countries, welcoming them to colorful Colorado to make new homes and rebuild their lives. Colorado is proud to be home to refugees from all over the world, including countries such as Ethiopia, Eritrea, Democratic Republic of Congo, Somalia, Iraq, Afghanistan, Bhutan, and Burma. Colorado Refugee Connect proudly engages dozens of refugee network service providers. If you'd like more information about refugee resettlement, be sure to check out our Learn page, where you can explore resources from a variety of trusted authorities on this important issue. Or take a look at our Engage page, where opportunities to get involved are listed. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you in the next video as we explore how refugees get to Colorado.